The Jurassic period is perhaps best known as the golden age of the dinosaurs. From Great Britain to Antarctica, these creatures would spread throughout every corner of the globe and grow to tremendous sizes and statures. Animals like these would thrive in various different environments and would, in time, diversify into a plethora of awe-inspiring species like the titanic sauropods, or the world-renowned stegosaurs, and even the mighty Allosaurs, which are well recognized as some of the most famous Jurassic dinosaurs of all time. However, to the far east thrived other creatures under the shadows of these cultural giants in what was once the lost world of Jurassic China. In this mysterious land, many new clades would evolve over the course of time, one of which being the Metriacanthosaurs. The Metriacanthosaurs were a group of medium to large theropod dinosaurs that filled a similar niche to the mighty Allosaurids of the West. These animals represented the apex of predatory dinosaurs in the Far East until the rise of the Tyrannosaurs in the Cretaceous period. And of these massive predators, one obscure dinosaur would come to rule over the dense forests of prehistoric China as one of the top predators of its era. Known to science as the most complete member of its family and coming at a roughly 30 feet in length, this Jurassic giant, while not actually sharing a relation to true raptors of the age, was still a formidable predator. And the name of this formidable predator was Sinraptor, the terror of Xinjiang. Two years before the discovery of Sinraptor, China went through a period of economic reform, which led to a rapid growth of the country's economy. Afterwards, a Chinese paleontologist by the name of Dong Zhiming traveled across the world to Canada in 1985. There he met up with other paleontologists such as Philip J. Currie and Dale Russell. The three of them were represented as the leaders of the China-Canada Dinosaur Project, a 6-year dinosaur expedition to both of the countries the project was named after. This would also end up being the first major time that Chinese and other foreign paleontologists would collaborate in 36 years. Starting in May 1986, Zhiming, Currie, Russell, along with a multitude of other paleontologists would start their expedition in the northernmost part of the Arctic in Canada. Afterwards, the expedition team would move on from Canada and take themselves to a desert in the Zhenghe Basin in northwestern China. This certain desert within the basin would be in the Shishigo Formation. There they would find a bunch of different species of dinosaurs, including a new species for the famous sauropod, Mamenchisaurus, and also a brand new genus of theropod dinosaur discovered by Dong Zhiming himself in 1987. Upon describing this new dinosaur material, the bones would later be sent to the Institution of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology in Beijing. There, the bones would be classified as holotype IVPP10600. The said holotype consists of a highly complete upper body of a subadult. The bones in the holotype specimen would include a complete skull, many cervical and dorsal vertebrae, a scapula, multiple ribs, an ilium, an ischium, and a majority of a left leg. 7 years later, in 1994, paleontologists Philip J. Currie and Zhao Zhijing would describe this holotype as a new species of dinosaur called Sinraptor dongi. Its generic name Sinraptor combines the two Latin prefixes Sino, meaning Chinese, and Raptor, meaning robber or thief, with the species name dongi being named in honor of its discoverer, ultimately leaning up to the name meaning Dong's Chinese thief. In February 1985, prior to the type species description of Sinraptor, a group of farmers discovered various cuttle vertebrae within the purplish-red mudstone of the upper Zhangshimao Formation. This particular formation is located in the Xinjiang Basin, and soon after the findings of these bones were made, they would be sent to the Xinjiang Dinosaur Museum for further examination. The holotype ZDM0024 consists of a nearly complete skeleton, similar to the type species. The specimen comprises nearly everything with the exception of a few of the caudal vertebrae, along with its arms and a majority of its legs. Unlike Dongyi, this holotype was found to be an adult specimen. Paleontologist Guy Hui of Xinjiang Dinosaur Museum believed that the uncovered specimen was another species of theropod dinosaur of the same family as Sinraptor, that being Yangchuanosaurus. Therefore, Yahui described his find as Yangchuanosaurus hepingensis in 1992, with the species name hepingensis being a reference to the Heping province, the area that the species was discovered in. Towards 1994, with the release of the new Sinraptor paper by Dong Zhiming, this taxon would be ascribed to the newly described genus, therefore changing the animal's name to Sinraptor hepingensis, a potential second species. This particular taxon would prove to be highly enigmatic, as some paleontologists consider its true taxonomic placement to be still up for debate. Gaiu still believed that hepingensis was a species of Yangchuanosaurus, however, and in 1999 he speculated that the type, genus, and species for Sinraptor is also another species of Yangchuanosaurus, but this description has since then been proven false. 20 years later, in 2019, paleontologists Oliver W.M. Rohat and Diego Pol had made an attempt to once again include Sinraptor hepingensis as a species of Yangchuanosaurus, making its true taxonomic placement even more of a toss-up, and later in a 2024 publication with the description of the newest member of Metriacanthosauridae, Alcaracush, also attempted to put S. hepingensis as another species for Yangchuanosaurus. As it stands now, Sinraptor is known to be the most complete member of Metriacanthosauridae. While one species is entirely valid, hopefully more material would give us a better understanding of where or what the animal assigned to the genus Hepingensis truly is. Sinraptor was a moderately sized carnivore for its time, which we now know thanks to the highly preserved holotypes that were discovered. And due to this, scientists have been easily able to determine this creature's size. However, many different speculations have been made since its discovery. The type species S. dongi was proposed by Gregory S. Paul to have reached a length of 8 meters or 26 feet and to have a weight of 1.3 metric tons or 2,600 pounds. Meanwhile, Thomas Holt speculated the size to be 8.8 meters or 29 feet in length. On the other hand, the potential second species, S. hepingensis, was thought to be even larger in comparison, as it had a length of 9.2 meters or 30 feet and an approximate weight of 2 tons or 4,409 pounds, making this theropod nearly the same size as Allosaurus. Given the size of this genus, it would have been a truly terrifying predator for its time. And thanks to Sinraptor, we now have a better idea of how Metriacanthosaurus would have been structured as a whole. Despite the genus name, Sinraptor is not related to raptors or dromaeosaurs of any kind. Instead, this animal comes from a group of predatory dinosaurs known as Metriacanthosauridae, a family branching off from the Allosauroid carnosaurs. Prior to its current family name, this group of dinosaurs was actually known as Sinraptoridae by paleontologists Curry and Xinjiang. Famous paleontologist Paul Sereno even went as far as saying that Sinraptoridae was among one of the most inclusive and monophyletic groupings. It contains Sinraptor itself along with all other genera and species that were closer to Sinraptor than to other creatures like Giganotosaurus or Carcharodontosaurus. However, in 2012, paleontologists Matthew T. Carano, Roger Benson, and Scott D. Sampson made a statement saying that the name Metriacanthosauridae had a higher priority over Sinraptoridae and was therefore changed into the new family name. Metriacanthosauridae is a rather small and poorly understood group of carnivores that originated from the Middle Jurassic and potentially even survived up to the early Cretaceous period in what is now modern-day Eurasia, with Metriacanthosaurus, the type genus, currently being the only member known from Europe. Sinraptor itself, along with its close relatives, were among some of the earliest representatives of not just Allosauroidea, but are some of the earliest members of Carnosauria as a whole, with the earliest confirmed member being Shedaisaurus, which lived in the Illydian to the Bohocian stages of the Middle Jurassic. Certain traits from this family have been shown to branch off of the Sinraptor's more famous relatives from different families. For starters, its overall dental structure was highly similar to its distant cousin, Allosaurus, and it, along with the rest of its close relatives, also had highly prominent lacrimal horns. However, Sinraptor and its kin took it a step further, with genera such as the Yangchuanosaurus possessing multiple hornets along with bony ridges. And with the description of Al-Karakush from Kyrgyzstan this year, these structures may even have been more elaborate, potentially being sheathed in vibrantly colored keratin. Sinraptor lived in what is now modern-day China from 157 to 163 million years ago, during the Oxforian stage of the late Jurassic period. The type species, S. dongi, is thought to have lived in the volcanic marshlands of the Shishigo Formation. Volcanoes have been hypothesized to exist during this time, following an analysis of the rocks in this formation in which scientists have discovered large amounts of volcanic ash, indicating frequent eruptions have occurred during this time period. Such volcanism can form natural death traps. These traps allowed for fossilization of anything that got caught in them. Thanks to these traps, scientists have been provided with a wide variety of fossil material, showcasing the amount of fauna that Sinraptor lived with. These death pits are not only formed by volcanoes, but also from footprints of larger dinosaurs, primarily by the local sauropods such as Mamenchisaurids, like Mamenchisaurus itself, Titanosaurus, as well as the Titanosauriform Fushinosaurus. As adults, these Goliaths would have been too much for a lone Sinraptor to handle, though it is fairly likely that mob tactics could have been employed to fell these giants. However, smaller sauropods like Belusaurus and the juveniles of the aforementioned genera would have been prime targets for a hungry Sinraptor. While no flora is known at this given time, S. dongi is known to have lived with multiple different kinds of animals. Animals such as the mammalia form Ioanotherium, a late surviving cynodont that would have been nothing more than a morsel for an adult Sinraptor, though it is likely it would have been more reliable food source for younger individuals. Additionally, any body of water would have been home to crocodiliforms, including Junkersuchus, Sonosuchus, and Nemanosuchus, that would have likely eaten fish like Bienopteroides, turtles such as Xinjiang heelys, and the occasional dinosaur. Pterosaurs such as the Rhamphorhynchine king Cericipteryx and the basal pterodactyloid Cryptodracon would have been a common sight soaring through the skies. Most numerous in this area would have been dinosaurs like the aforementioned sauropods. Being the only large theropod from the locality, Sinraptor was likely the apex predator, meaning just about anything was on the menu. Possible prey items would have included basal ornithopods like Eugombosaurus and early ceratopsians such as Yinglong and Hualian ceratops. If a Sinraptor was desperate for food, it could have gone after the stegosaur Zhangjunosaurus. As for other theropods, only smaller genera have been found. Saurosaurs such as Zulolong and the famous early tyrannosaur Guanglong, the Electrosaur Lemurosaurus, and the basal Alvarezsaurs Haplochirus and Shishigonicus. The other species, Sinraptor hepingensis, is older, living in the Bathonian to the Cathalonian age rocks of the upper Shaximiao Formation of China. The environment at that time had an ancient water system with a very wide basin, and likely had wet and dry seasons. The only known flora that lived in this smooth terrain environment was a genus of conifer tree named Brachioxylon. The fauna that lived in this river contained fish like Ceratodus, a cerodontid lungfish, and it was also home to amphibians like Cynobrachiops. Sinraptor hepingensis would have patrolled these rivers preying on amphibians, while juveniles would see fish as a small snack. However, the river also held dangers such as the two crocodilomorphs, Sisosuchus and Sonosuchus. Pterosaurs were also present like the Rhamphorhynchid Angostinopteryx. These animals were much too small to sustain an adult Sinraptor and were most likely difficult to even catch unless given a lucky opportunity, though it is possible that younger individuals would have attempted to hunt these animals. When it comes to dinosaurs, Sinraptor had a plethora to prey upon. The habitat was home to many different kinds of herbivore. Neo-ornithischians like Gombosaurus and Yambosaurus were fleet-footed and agile, likely only able to be caught via ambush. Stegosaurs were also present in a large variety. The locality was home to genera including, but not limited to, Chilingosaurus, Jongkingosaurus, Gigaspinosaurus, and Tujangosaurus, Though in order to tackle one of these stegosaurs, a Sinraptor would have to face off against the formidable phagomizers and armor of these animals. However, if a young stegosaur was separated, Sinraptor would not overlook the chance at an easy meal. Sinraptor had a wide variety of prey in different shapes and sizes, which also included the vast variety of sauropods that thrived in these environments. The long-necked Mamenchisaurids were prevalent in this site, with species like Dinosaurs and various species of Omesaurus and Mamenchisaurus itself taking the role of the high browser in the environment. It's not known if Sinraptor hunted in packs or if they were solitary hunters, but it's likely that groups would have been needed to take down larger sauropods. Smaller sauropods would have likely been easier to hunt, however dinosaurs like Shunosaurus would have been a challenge due to its clubbed tail. Despite being an apex predator, Sinraptor isn't the only theropod that thrived in this locality, as Shaximiao also came with competition. Sinraptor lived alongside fragmentary taxa like Xiancosaurus and Szechuanosaurus, theropods that would make a meal out of younger individuals. It would also go face to face with the other apex predator, Yangshuanosaurus. Sinraptor would have possibly competed with Yangshuanosaurus over food and territory. Conversely, it is also possible that they stayed clear of one another by taking different niches. Still, if push came to shove, a young Sinraptor would have made an excellent meal for any desperate theropod. Given that Sinraptor is an obscure dinosaur in comparison to its more famous relatives, it has unfortunately made little appearances in media since its discovery, with its first video game appearance being 2005's Dinosaur King, in which it was represented as a wind type and had 3 different forms, those being the base form, super, and alpha variants. 3 years later, in 2008, it would be featured in Fossil Fighters as the Fire-type Vivasaur S-Raptor, along with being featured in the sequel game Fossil Fighters Champions 2 years later in 2010. Over a decade later, in 2024, it would be brought to Jurassic World Alive in Update 3.4 as one of the new Omega-class creatures. As for documentaries, Sinraptor has so far only made 4 notable appearances, with its first being in 2011's BBC series Planet Dinosaur in the episode titled Feathered Dragons, where a juvenile individual is shown in various segments hunting a few Epidexipteryx. In the same year, Dinosaur Evolution also featured Sinraptor in the episode Survival Tactics. In this episode, a pair of these creatures are showcased hunting a young Shunosaurus, but ultimately fail in the attempt as one is whacked by the Shunosaurus' tail club and the other one fell off of a cliff along with its prey, getting killed in the process. Later in 2016, Sinraptor was shown in the French docuseries A New Prehistory, being depicted with feathers and incorrectly being showcased in Russia instead of China. Its last and most current documentary appearance was in the 2023 Netflix exclusive Life on Our Planet, in episode 6 titled Out of the Ashes, where an individual is seen hunting a female Anchiornis. Overall, Sinraptor hasn't seen too much of a spotlight since it was discovered, but hopefully in the future this amazing animal will be featured more in the pop culture landscape. Sinraptor is a rather fascinating animal of its time, having lived for 6 million years during a more nebulous part of the Jurassic period, alongside some of the longest dinosaurs on the planet like Mamenchisaurus. It also competed with larger members of its respected family like Yangshuanosaurus. However, despite its status as one of the top predators of its environment, it unfortunately went extinct before the Oxforian-Kimmeridgian boundary over 157 million years ago, and what caused this carnivorous dinosaur to eventually go extinct is still a mystery. The issue regarding its extinction is that the other dinosaurs that shared its environment, like Yangshuanosaurus and Mamenchisaurus, managed to live far into the late Jurassic. Interestingly enough, smaller sauropods like Fushinosaurus and Taishinosaurus went extinct at the same time as Sinraptor. This suggests that Sinraptor was probably more specialized in hunting smaller sauropods, and when those sauropods disappeared, it would force Sinraptor to hunt larger prey that was still available, which would have put it into even more direct competition with Yangshuanosaurus. Not having adapted to take on such larger prey, Sinraptor would find itself at a major disadvantage. Unfortunately, Sinraptor would not be able to adapt to the changes fast enough and would sadly become extinct. However, its kin, the Metriacanthosaurids, would persevere well into the Cretaceous, with the genus Siamotyrannus from Thailand potentially being the last known Metriacanthosaur. And there's possible fossilized tracks from the Albian stage of the Cretaceous in France, which means that the group quite possibly could have managed to persevere longer than expected. Meanwhile, the sister group to Metriacanthosauridae known as Allosauroid would manage to continue dominating the planet throughout the late Jurassic period and into the early to late Cretaceous. These dinosaurs would be able to go toe-to-toe with the colossal sauropods. Their titanic battles would leave an incredible mark on prehistory and pop culture alike. Though Sinraptor wouldn't be able to see this new age, its fossils still give us an incredible insight into the evolution of Allosauroidia as a whole. And hopefully, in the future, both science and the public will learn more about the amazing animal that is Sinraptor, the terror of Xinjiang. Thank you all for watching our video about Xinjiang's terror, Sinraptor. We put a lot of work into this one and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did making it. Sinraptor is an underlooked animal along with the rest of its family and definitely deserves more recognition. This video was directed by The Primal Earth, narrated by myself, LegitEliminator, scripted by myself, The Primal Earth, RangoGamer, CrimsonAcro, Mike MC9797, SpinoDragon145, and Straight Up Murph. Edited by The Primal Earth, myself, CrimsonAcro, TheDinosaurHunter, SpinoDragon145, and Mike MC9797. The graphic designers for this video were TheDinosaurHunter and Mephilas Seijin101 for the Sinraptor models, and Straight Up Murph for the designs. And lastly, the research for this video was done by myself, CrimsonAcro, Straight Up Murph, Mike MC9797, and SpinoDragon145. On one final note, back in October 2024, the legendary Chinese paleontologist Zhiming, to who the type species of Sinraptor was named after, has sadly passed away. We, the Epoch Now team, would like to take this time to honor him and commend his studies and works that he has left us in his passing. And with that, we will see you all next time on Epoch Now.